And it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, could tax cuts save the Tories from election annihilation? Now, this morning, in fact, Camilla Tominey spoke to Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who said that he would not rule out cutting income tax in his autumn statement next week. Take a listen.
That if we're going to be a dynamic, thriving, energetic, fizzing economy, we need low tax and we need taxes to be lower than they are at the moment. We're not going to do anything irresponsible, particularly by which I mean anything that fuels inflation.
Well, that was the Chancellor speaking to GBNews earlier, but now there's predictions of a Labour landslide at the next election. But could slashing taxes save the Conservatives from a crushing defeat? I'm asking, for the Great British Debate this hour, could tax cuts save the Tories from election annihilation? Right, so joining me to debate and discuss, Stephen Pound, former Labour Party MP, Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Sunil Sharma, Chief Operating Officer for the Conservative Friends of the Commonwealth, and Mike Parry, journalist and broadcaster. Well, I'm going to start with you, Sunil. Could the tax cuts save the Tories?
I think that alone won't save the Tories, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I think if you look at what happened even in the by-elections, for example, in Bedfordshire, where although it was a crushing defeat for the Tories, we saw something positive for them in the sense of we're not necessarily seeing traditional or general Tory voters switching to Labour. I think what we're seeing a lot more of is those voters not coming out to vote. So I think there's something there of optimism for the party in the sense of Sir Keir Starmer has not successfully been able to take those Tory voters to the Labour side, something that Tony Blair was very strong at and did a very good job of. Sir Keir Starmer isn't doing that. I don't think a lot of people necessarily find him that interesting. And I think the bigger problem for the Tories is themselves. I think they are losing elections rather than Labour winning elections. I
think something you said there is the problem with the Tories is themselves. I think that seems to be it. Mike Parry.
Yeah, look, I think this is a gimmick. I mean, Sir Keir Starmer accused the Tory party of Rwanda being a gimmick, and it's not. It's a solid policy on how to stop people coming across the channel. But if the Tory party really believed in low taxes, it shouldn't have taken until the last moment of the last government they're likely to be able to conduct for a number of years to suddenly come up with tax cuts. In my view, tax cuts are a political ideology for the left, but for small c Conservatives, it should be common sense. Any economist will tell you if you lower taxes, you generally speaking get a bigger return. Think about when George Osborne ramped up stamp duty. Do you know what happened in that year? Stamp duty returns went down by about 25%. Common sense tells you that if you give the ordinary working man and woman their money instead of taking it as a government, the money is used better, it's more productive, and it stimulates the economy. So whilst Jeremy Hunt is now, presumably on Wednesday this week, going to be, the flag bearer of cutting taxes, it's not his philosophy. He and Rishi Sunak don't believe in that. David Cameron, Lord Cameron, I beg your pardon, coming into the government, doesn't believe in that, and they're using it as a tactic to try and bring voters on their side.
But his argument was it was all about being responsible. By the sounds of it, I mean, he did use the word responsible, and as though he wouldn't do anything irresponsible. Stephen Pound.
Yeah, it's a complete myth. The idea that slashing taxes and letting, as Gladstone used to say, the money fructify in the pockets of the people actually increases productivity. It's absolute nonsense. It's economic illiteracy. The reality is, look at Italy, which has a higher productivity ratio than we have. Look at France. Look at the other countries which have a higher tax rates and are much, much more productive. The real problem we have in this country is the infrastructure, which is crumbling. Our schools and our prisons are collapsing left, right and centre. We should be spending money on that. But finally, Mike Parry, not for the first time, has actually said something rather sensible. Because, in all honesty, if they want to bring in tax cuts, and if they want to bring this as a great carrot to lure the electorate back into the blue booth, they should have done it 2 or 3 years ago. If they do it next April, which is the earliest they could introduce it, if he announces it on Wednesday or Thursday, it's going to come in next April, people won't feel the effect of that till, guess when? The next election.
Ben Habib.
Well, I completely endorse everything Mike said. It's self-evident they should have cut taxes ages ago. Hunt himself says that this is going to be a budget for growth. And by that, what he means is, for the first time in history, this Conservative government is going to cut taxes. Well, if he recognises that cutting taxes results in growth, then he should have cut them years ago. But Mike's also right when he says this government isn't for cutting taxes. This government is large state intervention, big borrowing, big spending, high taxation. When Hunt talks about getting people back into work, he talks about a £2.5 billion fund that he's going to set up to spend money. It doesn't occur to him that if he cut taxes on the working and middle classes, they'd be incentivised to go to work. They're not at the moment. You can make just as much money on benefits, pretty much, as you do at the median wage in the United Kingdom. We're running a third world economy in a first world country. The irresponsible thing to do is not to cut taxes.
Sunil?
Yeah, I think the big problem for the electorate, and I think it's exactly what Stephen's saying in the sense of, I think it's very hard to see what the core principles and values are of Rishi and Jeremy Hunt. I think we can all understand when people have a set of principles and values and what they believe in, and that has been something I think the party is still trying to work out. It's clear with some of the leadership, some of the people within the party, whether it's Suella, Liz, what their plans are, what they believe in. I think with Jeremy and Rishi, the big thing for a lot of voters is what do they actually believe in? What's going to happen in terms of we're doing tax cuts, which is a Conservative policy to do. Will they follow through with this? What about immigration? What about the role of big state? What about, it doesn't seem to me as if there's a clear vision, and I think that's going to be much more important.
But our alternative is the Labour Party, and they are. We know that they always their record is a party of tax. So if we think tax is high now, I would suspect that the Labour Party will put it even higher. Is that Mike?
I totally agree with you. I mean, I saw Rachel Reeves on the television this morning. She couldn't answer one single question on what her policies were going to be. She used the old political trick, well, we haven't seen the books yet, so I don't know how we're going to address it. You know as well as I do, everybody on this panel, every time a Labour government has come in, when they've gone out, they've bankrupted the country. It's absolutely true. Harold Wilson and Jim Callaghan, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown bankrupted the country because at the end, when their daft policies, which in my view are daft, that's only my opinion, don't work, they just raise taxes and milk the British person. Let me give you a small example. If I've got to pay £40 tax more a week under all these tax rises, it means I can't go to my Chinese restaurant on a Friday night, take my girlfriend and enjoy a meal, which would keep that business going. Multiply that by 1 million or 2 million people, and all of a sudden, you're sucking money out of the economy to give to politicians. And we all know politicians are incompetent and incapable of managing money.
Well, somebody should speak up for the incompetent and the incapable, and I think that's probably my job to do that. But look, the reality is, if we actually spent money on infrastructure so that the goods could actually get to that Chinese restaurant quicker, if we actually cut VAT so that Mike's food bill, which is probably fairly impressive at the moment, I should say, could be reduced even more, we should do it. But look, this old nonsense, this shibboleth about Labour putting up taxes, absolute rubbish. The population increased, therefore the tax take increased. It was not Labour that put them up. It was the increase in the population. But the bottom line about this is, will it save the Conservatives? The only thing that can save the Conservatives is what they call retail politics now, where people pick and choose in a way that they didn't do when I first came into politics sometime in the last century. It's the only thing that can save them. The idea of a gimmick now, Rwanda is for the birds. That simply isn't going to happen. Law and order, I think they've lost the control of that completely. Public order, they just don't know what they're talking about. So cutting taxes, that'll be a great advantage in 2 years' time. And a Labour government will probably enjoy the fruits and the benefits of that tax cut. Thank you, Jeremy.
Well, they'll probably put the taxes back up, though, won't they? They'll probably add some more or find something else. I mean, Keir Starmer's got plans to tax private schools, hasn't he? That's one that's coming out of...
No, he hasn't. He's just removing the charitable status.
It amounts to the same thing, though. There'll be VAT.
They're commercial organisations.
They're going to charge VAT, though. Yeah, but not all of them. They are, but a lot of them...
The Labour Party will level the country down, and the Conservatives have already had had a pretty damn good go at kicking the economy and the social fabric of this country in the shins. The Labour Party will be a shade worse than the Conservatives.
Who's going to speak for the Conservatives?
By the way,
I think the thing for the Conservatives, I think the thing that honestly may save them is the fact that I just don't see Conservative voters voting for Sir Keir Starmer. I think if you had a much stronger leader, whether it's even somebody like Andy, but somebody who believes in something for the Labour Party, somebody who doesn't pick his policies based on Twitter and Instagram, I think if they had somebody there with some charisma, who isn't as boring as Sir Keir, I think they would have a fantastic chance of doing this. I think the Conservative Party in some ways are very lucky that it's Sir Keir Starmer and the opposite number, not someone else. It gives them some time to rally. Maybe the tax cuts, if they can do better with stopping the boats, if they can actually act on some of these policies that they have, maybe they can stop from a complete annihilation, and maybe it will mean a minority government.
Well, let's see. Let's get a final one now. Ben Habib.
Well, one final word from me.
No, not one final word. No. Could tax cuts save the Tories from election annihilation? The final word is yes or no?
No, but Reform UK could. Reform UK can. It's not a two-part. It's not a two-horse race. There's a third horse in this race.
We're not talking about reform. We're talking about that. It's like that. And another thing, Colombo.
No, but I wasn't allowed to say it earlier.
You're not going to say anything. Just we don't want to know. We're talking about the Tories now. Stephen Pound.
And finally, no.
No, you don't think they can. Sunil, what do you think?
Yes.
You think so?
Not from annihilation, from losing. But
from losing,
yeah.
But not from annihilation. Mike Parry, what do you think? Yes or no?
I think inheritance tax can save the Tories.
No
It
way.
happened last night, didn't it? Gordon Brown called
It was
off
yes
an
or no.
election.
It's a yes or no, Mike. We've got to run to the news. But listen, thank you so much. That's good to talk to you, Mike. Stephen Pound, thank you very much. Former Labour Party MP, Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform, Sunil Sharma, Chief Operating Officer of the Conservative Friends of the Commonwealth, and Mike Parry, journalist and broadcaster. Thank you so much.